What's up, guys? I got a little bit of here. Today, we're going to be reacting to the backstory of the Soul King by Standard Bloom. Now, I've been trying to get into more reacting to more anime content because I love anime. So I'm watching and reading every day. And Bleach is one of my favorite anime, and it's they're getting ready to come back with the final season, which I think we can all agree, fucking finally, right? Finally, they're going to come to the final season. And I've always thought one of the most mysterious characters of the Bleach was the Soul King, because as far we know, I mean, I know there's more information and can't figure your own world, but as far as the manga wise, the main manga, as far as we know, he was just this he was just this linchpin being, just a state of like non-life and death, like this miserable like existence being who just keeps everything together. And I know the Can't Figure World novels, they've done more backstory on it, they've done more backstory of it, and I've read some of it. But I saw this video, I haven't think it seems to be he's really going in on it, and he's really explaining a lot of backstory. So I thought I want to react to this. I own nothing. This is all owned by Stan Bloom. There will be no exclusive reveal, as well as on my social media. Also, the link to his channel. Please go check him out because he seems to have some really great videos up there of Bleach. Make sure to let me know your thoughts down below. Reaction, like your level, what other things of anime you want me to react to. What other you think I should react to more episodes of it? Let me know down below. Of Staying Blue, let me know down below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share if you guys enjoy the video. Help me grow my channel. I have almost at 1,000 subscribers, so I hope you guys continue to do that. But we're gonna get right into it.
Very, very, very long time ago, the world and all of the creation within it was in a state of ambiguity. There was neither life nor death. Progression and regression flickered to and fro. Swaying and swaying slowly, this waning and waxing world waited for 100 million years to cool down. What is now known as hell was but a certain pit in that chaotic world. The Bankai of a certain someone mirrored the state this primordial chaotic world was in. It is the closest picture we have of what this primordial world was like. Shuhei Zanpakuto, Kazeshini. It was suspected that Shuhei was one of very few Soul Reapers that wielded dual swords. But that has been falsified. The chain that connected the two seethed blades is the Zanpakuto. The significance of this distinction shall soon be known. It has long been established by Yamamoto Genryusai in the Soul Society arc that there are only two dual swords in existence, Shunsui Kyoraku's Katen Kyokotsu and Jushiro Ukitake's Sogyo no Kotowari. It's also worth noting that while Shunsui has dual swords even in base, Ukitake has only one sword in base that forms dual swords in Shikai.
He's also the vessel of
However, this information has been outdated when Ichigo discovered the true nature of his Zanpakuto, and henceforth wielded dual swords as well, with one representing his Quincy powers and the other representing a combination of his Hollow and Soul Reaper powers. This Bankai that mirrored the state the original world was in has been mentioned in chapter 685 of Bleach, one chapter before the finale. Prior to activating his Bankai, Shuhei Kazeshini demonstrates a magnificent ability. Any wound or injury that Shuhei sustains is immediately mended. Chains spurt out the peripheries of the damaged areas and pulls them back together, returning them to an unscathed condition. Shuhei Hisage's Bankai, Fushi no Kojo. First, Shuhei propels the dual seeds of Kazeshini above himself. Surging upwards, the dual seeds form a helix while simultaneously creating a black whirlpool that surrounds Shuhei. The dual seeds eventually meet, vanishing into the whirlpool, with the chain that connected them now condensed into a single point. The whirlpool subsides, followed by gusts of a black wind Reiatsu that ravages the area, revealing the chain that takes the form of a jet black cluster. This cluster leaps upwards and bursts outwards, forming a massively enormous jet black sphere high up in the sky that illuminates the ground with shadows, substituting light with innumerable black. This jet black sphere, reminiscent of the sun, albeit with juxtaposed properties, is made of chains. It is the product of the chain that once connected the two seeds of Kazeshini's Shikai.
Interesting. It's like that blind dude, that blind guy Zamato, when he would activate Zamato, and it would be that barrier that black barrier that would come up. If I remember it correctly, I might have, it's been a long time since I've read or watched Bleach, and they would like make you lose like all your senses or something like that. So it's kind of like that, but that's very interesting because Shuhei was a very interesting character, you know, and Bleach in general always liked them, you know, just from the backstory with Island and you know and all these other things that are going on. And one thing I always wanted in Bleach was to get like the Zanpakuto, like all the characters that I liked and see what they're gonna really do. And his is really fucking interesting. Just the whole like chain shit and the whole like reattaching and shit. Like that's so fucking interesting.
Chains from the sphere ensnare the enemy. Next, the seeds of Kazeshini's Shikai reappear within Shuhei's grasp, and chains erupt from the ground, ensnaring Shuhei's right and left arms, tethering him to the ground. Any damage, wound, or injury inflicted onto Shuhei is instantly nullified, returning him to an unharmed condition as though the injury never took place. By raising one of the seeds, countless chains ascend from the ground up to the black sphere, resulting in an appearance that resembles a prison. Following that, an agglomeration of thick black chains resembling a tree descend downwards, connecting the black sphere to the ground. Here is a drawing made by a Bleach fan that further illustrates what Shuhei's Bankai looks like. So I shall get those pesky chains out the way so y'all can clearly see what occurs behind them. Finally, the chains withholding the enemy unwind only to ensnare the opponent's neck. Those same chains then ensnare Shuhei's neck as well. Now, not only Shuhei, but any damage the opponent sustains is nullified as well. Chains that are indestructible and unbreakable. Any attempt to escape is thwarted by chains from the black sphere that forcefully pulls an attempted escapee back under the black sphere. A Bankai that takes control of life and death. A Bankai worthy of someone that holds the title of Soul Reaper. It locks everything, forbids death, forbids life. The black sun binds even the reishi flowing in the atmosphere. Therefore, Kazeshini traps the world within a chain prison where no circulation takes place, neither regression nor evolution. Ironically, this scenario that forces the stagnation of life is the exact same world in which there exists no boundary.
It's also the same thing kind of as the Soul King, you know, his you know, the whole part of him being that crystallized state. It's like in that state there's no life, death, there's no you don't evolve or anything. You're just like in this soulless, stagnant state that doesn't go anywhere. You don't evolve, you don't live, you don't die. So also remembering the Soul King situation, which is kind of fucking painful. I mean, look like I think it's the beauty like in the pain that is, because looking like he has like the neck like he's suicide. So it also screams to me like just a lot of pain, and just treat how painful such as this like that really is, and how meaningless it is, at least to me. And guys, I will be stopping like periodically just because I want to get my own 2 cents in. I want to do as well.
Between life and death. This resembled the very form of the world that existed before the birth of the Soul Society.
How could you live in such a world where everybody just...
Here is a zoomed out illustration I've made in order to provide you with a holistic picture of what it completely looks like. But my illustration certainly does not do justice to his Bankai. One reason being the fact that the sphere was described to be a great distance above the ground in the sky. And don't forget that there are chains connecting ground to the sphere.
It's really fucking interesting. Like this Bankai, I've never seen a Bankai like that before. That's really interesting.
The workings of Kazeshini's chains and the fact that his Bankai was explicitly compared to the primordial world reminded me of the chain of fate in Ganokusari that connected human souls to their bodies. Death was when that chain was severed from the body or when it's broken. In the first arc of Bleach, Rukia was able to return Orihime's soul back into her body when it was removed by her hollified brother, Sora. Rukia states that one is not dead so long as the chain of fate is connected to the body, and hence why she was incapable of returning Yuichi, Chad's friend, the person whose soul occupied a parakeet bird, back to his body as his chain has been severed. I conjecture that these chains of fate are a relic of the original world in some way.
There's a lot of S&M going on right now, all these chains.
Eventually, hollows became part of the circulation of souls in the original chaotic world, and soon after began devouring humans, resulting in what would be the first Menos, and as such, the circulation ceased and the world became still. But as though the world itself rejected these conditions, a new life came into being, one that would destroy the Menos, turning it into sands of Reishi. There he was, the man you know as the Soul King, the Reo, the original guardian between man and hollows, a devil and a messiah. He was a Quincy, a Shinigami, and also a human, a symbol of hope governing the chaotic world, with innumerable abilities like that of the Fullbringers. He was someone whose powers truly came close to omnipotence. However, he was not the only one that appeared with special powers. There were others, and Ichibei was one of them. This explains the phenomenal powers of Ichibei that were centered around names. Power oh so phenomenal that Ichibei was able to revive himself after being utterly eviscerated and blown apart by Yuha, by simply making Ichigo call out his name, as if his mind still persisting after the devastation of his body, and even further communicate telepathically with Ichigo was not remarkable enough. The audience, including myself, thought of that as a definite ass-pull on Kubo's part. But as is evident, it specifically relates to the history of the world in Bleach. The man you know as the Soul King continued to protect humans from hollows by annihilating them, resulting in the stagnation of the world. And this world, being what it is, began to descend into chaos due to the stagnation.
Interesting.
There were other powerful people, and 5 of them in particular, that found the state of affairs disagreeable. These 5 are the ancestors of the 5 noble houses.
Oh shit.
The Shiba, Kuchiki, Shihoin, Tsuneyoshiro, and a 5th unnamed and unknown clan as of now. Indeed, they are the ancestors of the current heads of the 5 clans, most of which you probably already know. Those being Kukaku Shiba, Byakuya Kuchiki, Yoruichi Shihoin, Tokinada Tsuneyoshiro, and the other unknown 5th clan's head.
So these were other beings.
Strictly speaking, Yushiro, that is Yoruichi's younger brother, is the head of the Shihoin clan. Their authority...
I want to talk real quick because the reason why the Soul King was this right was to protect humans, you know, from the hollows. It's kind of like a failsafe. So a failsafe, like the world realized it needed help, so like this great being like emerged with all this power to help annihilate the soul, the hollows, to stop them from eating the humans. But by doing that, he caused a stagnation, destroying the world. Now it's kind of like, you know, doing a good thing, trying to do a good thing instead of being a bad thing in the long run. But my thought was like, why did the other beings, like why did Ichibei and the other ones come into existence as well? Like, whether did they come into existence because like that need to happen, like the Soul King, you know, the whole thing of them like cutting up the Soul King and changing them and turning to an linchpin? Did that need to happen? Because my thing was thought like if they use the Soul King's power to, you know, to create the world the way it is, why couldn't the Soul King have just done that himself? Why did he allow himself to be chopped up and like turn to like this hustless, lifeless, meaningless is this being that's just only point is like, well, not meaningless, his whole thing is like he's holding all positions together. But like, why do you do that? Could he not just done that with his own power by himself? And is that the reason why the other beings, like the 5 ancestors of the clans, came to existence along with Ichibei? I'm just wondering.
Can and does exceed that of Central 46, but only when all the heads of the 5 houses band and organize together. In any case, each of the ancestors of the 5 noble houses had their own specific objection. The Tsuneyoshiro ancestor was a man described as one with power and was the most suspicious of all. His objection was that he feared that the magnificent power of the man we know as the Soul King can be turned against them.
So he wasn't scared one
the
day
Kuchiki ancestor believed that the world required a new order, and that was necessary to solidify the world.
I can see that.
The Shihoin ancestor argued that a greater circulation was needed to advance the stagnating world. The ancestor of the unknown clan believed that a world that would serve as a lid, that would cover the pit known as hell, was necessary. And finally, the Shiba ancestor wanted a means by which hollows can be purified instead of annihilating them, as they too had hearts. Even though they had vastly and clearly different motives, those different motives led to the same goal and conclusion, and that was to split the world. A world of order, a world of implementation, and a world of paradise of sand where hollows would end up from either side. a system that establishes a discernible distinction between what we call life and death. It was all too clear, and to achieve that goal, the power of someone that transcended everything was required, and that someone was none other than the man you know as the Soul King.
But why though? Why do you...
The Soul King did not resist, and the Tsuneyoshiro ancestor was said to have tied the Soul King and then sealed him within a crystal.
His power like
the only one among them to contend against the process was the Shiba ancestor, who even pleaded to be used instead of the Soul King as a sacrifice for this world they've envisioned.
Okay, that's interesting because if you that's the clan that Ichigo and his father and like I can't get the other two, the girl and stuff, where they come from. That's interesting because the way Ichigo like and the people in that clan act, they're very selfless. They'll do anything to protect their friends and do what they believe is morally right in the matter of the stake. I mean, this is what we're talking about. Ichigo, the man that ran into the Soul Society, which is him and like a few people to save Ryuga while fighting this entire army filled with like these stronger beings. I mean, a guy who went to Wako Mundo, a land he was totally unfamiliar with these incredibly powerful like hollows, Espada and Rancars to save is it Oryu? It just, and even his dad, the way his dad is kind of like, he just gave her everything just to save his mother. Like, they're that type of people. So I can see, like their ancestors being the one, like, probably was a friend with the Soul King. He probably talked to the Soul King, probably became friends with him. It was like, no, like, don't put him in that state. Use me instead. Because, like I said, like, in the state he's in now, like, it's just this awful existence. Even when Hachibe saw it, she was like, I understand now when Aizen wanted things destroyed. Because, like, killing it would seem to be a mercy, wouldn't it? And like I said before, it's interesting, like, why didn't the Soul King do that himself? Like, if he had all his power, why didn't he just do what they did himself? I don't know. It's interesting.
The Shiba ancestors' goal of purifying hollows and their reaction, which was to object to the proposal of exploiting the man we know as the Soul King and them being used instead, is consistent with the nature of their descendants. In other words, the Shiba clan. Indeed, Isshin, Ichigo's father, is a Shiba and was a member of the branch family as stated by Rangiku, and was called uncle by Kukaku, though it was only implied to be him when she referred to him in that manner and not specified explicitly.
So it just makes sense, like why Ichigo and his father and just everybody else in the clan is like that, because it lost their ancestors. Like he seemed to be like a very whoever just seemed to be, excuse me guys, like a very just selfish person. Saying, and I can understand why he been one that probably got the closest to the Soul King. Like, I can say he's probably one that actually became friends with Soul King, actually got to understand who he is and didn't just fear him because it's almost omnipotent power.
So, Kukaku, Ganju, and Kayan's mother or father were the sibling of Isshin, making them the cousins of Ichigo. The Shiba's approach to the world with respect to what they find only right or moral is reminiscent of their ancestor. Ganju did not hesitate to confront Byakuya in order to carry out what his comrades hoped they'd fulfill and not forsake Hanataro, even though he thought at that time Rukia killed Kayan in cold blood. The same lack of hesitation was demonstrated by Isshin. Despite all that he'd lose if it meant saving Masaki, he agreed to it right away. And Ichigo, ever since he was a child, sported a protective nature, though to the detriment of his mother's death at the hands of Grand Fisher. This nature of his only got intensified as time went on, evidenced by pretty much the entirety of Bleach. The Shiba clan have fallen out of aristocracy and have been exiled from the Seirete, the reasons for which are not entirely clear, but it happened after Kayan's death, when he was taken over by a hollow, and Isshin's disappearance. Byakuya Kuchiki, head of the Kuchiki house, seemed to hold an animosity towards them.
I can see
he initially claimed that he would not dignify Ganju by using his sword on him, as he considered him to be vermin. But that quickly changed when he found out that Ganju was a Shiba. In any case, sealed within a crystal, his powers of the Almighty, yes, the Almighty, the Soul King wielded the Almighty just like Yuha. His powers of the Almighty were used as a keystone to fulfill their set goal. The chaotic world was effectively split, and the foundations of a new world was created. There it was, Soul Society, the material world, and Wako Mundo, now with hell unbound from them, separating life and death and establishing a soul cycle in a new era. That was not the end of his tale, as the Tsuneyashiro ancestor was doubtful even of the Soul King's non-resistance, and also afraid that the Soul King would escape the seal by himself. He did not want the Soul King alive, but neither did he want him dead, as he serves their objectives after all. And as such, he decided to mutilate the Soul King in order to disempower him.
I don't know, man. Like,
not only the Tsuneyashiro ancestor, but even the other ancestors concurred the notion. First, his right arm of stagnation and left arm of advancement were torn off. His legs dismembered, and his heart along with his internal organs were gouged out.
Oh my God, that's so
thus turning him into someone, if we can even refer to him as a someone, that is neither dead but also neither alive, and completely convenient for themselves. Some of those parts removed from him shall later come to life and subsequently be part of different coalitions. The right arm named Mimihagi, the left arm named Pernida, and the heart named Gerard, each having the powers that the Soul King held at one point, or so is presumed. According to Askin, Yuha did not grant Pernida, the left arm, or Gerard, the heart, their powers. Their script is based on powers they already had. The right arm is known as the right arm of stillness, and the left arm is known as the left arm of advancement. And they both have powers consistent with their title. The right arm, or Mimihagi, has the ability to subject entities into a stagnant condition, keeping whatever that is the right arm is influencing in a state where it does not progress further. This is showcased by Mimihagi's influence on Ukitake's disease. While the disease did not go away, the disease did not worsen anymore. In other words, his disease stagnated. In the brief moment when the Soul King died and the world was descending into chaos, Mimihagi was able to stabilize the world by grabbing hold of the Soul King. Now, I initially thought that this effect could have been brought about by any other part of the Soul King, or that any part could act as a proxy for the Soul King should he die. But as is evident, it may be a feat only available to Mimihagi due to their power of imposing stagnation or stillness. The left arm of advancement is capable of evolving, or in other words, advancing, a polar opposite of the right arm's ability. In their brief encounter with Zaraki, just by making contact with Zaraki, using its nerves, Pernida was later capable of evolving into a state equal to that of Zaraki. Mayuri realizes this when he takes note of the fact that Pernida was conversing in a manner similar to Zaraki. As this is in manga form, I cannot tell whether Pernida was just talking like Zaraki or literally had Zaraki's voice. Mayuri further concludes that this feat was a result of Pernida having absorbed information from Zaraki and then using that information to develop the Kenpachi's characteristics and abilities, such that Pernida advanced their speed to a level equal to that of Zaraki, and because of that, Mayuri feared that Nemu would die as her reaction speed is no match for Zaraki Kenpachi's. Furthermore, Pernida was capable of developing Mayuri's modified Bankai, Matai Fuin Shotai's multi-layer skin-shedding ability. Capable of advancing by absorbing information, and hence their title, left arm of advancement. In any case, Gerard is designated the title of the miracle, and has the power to manifest miracles, which is actually not as glamorous as it sounds.
Really?
So do not think or make the error of assuming that he can make any or all that is impossible to be possible.
No,
ironically, he is not that miraculous. His script, that is M, the miracle, is not a general overarching ability. It only really applies to very narrow cases, strictly in a combative environment. He was up against multiple captain-class soul reapers, Byakuya, Shinji, Rukia, Renji, Hinamori, and later on Kenpachi. What does that make you feel like saying? There is no way he is going to win, maybe what you'll first think. Except there is. because his body is unyielding and any destruction he sustains results in restoration only to be replaced by a yet stronger part. This, listeners, is the sense by which Gerard is a miracle. He even lost the battle, as a matter of fact, even having his head utterly destroyed by Byakuya and further being cut in half by Zaraki.
But he just kept
it was impossible for him to win, but through his script, that is the miracle, the tables are turned and his victory is made possible. Gerard's ability, and in particular, his increase in size, is compared to Yami's resurrection. The substantial difference is that unlike Yami, Gerard can almost be said to be immortal. To reiterate, he got his head ripped to ribbons by Senbonzakura's sharp petals, and even got cut in half, but yet survived. A feat Yami did not even come close to, and has actually got defeated. Gerard is somewhat of a counterintuitive case, as he takes a humanoid form. It goes without saying that that is not what a heart looks like, and less importantly, he doesn't look like the Soul King. My initial thought is that Gerard's case is similar to Gremmy's, where the form of his that we see is nothing but a projected form by the heart. Finally, both Gerard and Pernita are capable of using Quincy abilities, so it may well be the case that that is also true for Mimihagi as well.
Oh, you think he has a Keyblade? Similar to you, yeah.
Interestingly, the Japanese fans drew upon the similarity between the Soul King's dismemberment to a certain set of dual-winner Yu-Gi-Oh cards, those of Exodia the Forbidden One, or Exodia the Sealed One. Instant guaranteed victory is achieved should all the cards be gathered, releasing infinite power and breaking the seal upon Exodia. If you have the right arm of the Forbidden One, the left arm of the Forbidden One, the right leg of the Forbidden One.
So does that mean, like, if they're able to somehow, like, get back all the pieces of the Soul King, like his arm, both of his arms, his legs, his intestines and everything like that, he would probably, if I'm assuming, I probably would just rip out the shield and then, like, out of the crystal shell, we don't know what he would do. Because when Yami absorbed him, like when Yuha absorbed him, I always thought like he never absorbed the fully of the Soul King because they split all his body parts in half. So he never had like the full power of the Soul King. That's what I think.
And the left leg of the Forbidden One, and the card in your hands, which is the head along with the chest and torso, you shall win the duel. Why did he not resist? Surely with powers so mighty and magnificent, worthy of being described as godly, he could have. Right? The reason lies in his eyes. He had eyes that could peer into the future just like Yuha, someone that proclaims to be his son, and that those eyes are proof of a real Quincy.
Yeah, he's always like how...
Yuha further suggests that the Soul King may have seen into the far-flung future right up to the day he dies at the hands of Yuha. It cannot be known for sure, but it is surmised that either, seeing the future, he had known resistance was futile, or perhaps he saw a glimmer of hope in this new world envisioned by those 5 individuals. Which of those two is the actual reason is unclear.
It has to be the second one.
With regards to the former, a similar situation occurred with Yuha and Hashvald. In the manga, as Hashvald takes on Yuha's powers along with the Almighty when the latter falls asleep, he grieves, stating that having the ability to see the future is a cruel predicament. Which is odd considering that the ability to see the future is coupled with the ability to manipulate it. Perhaps it was then when he foresaw Yuha's defeat and his very own death. A conclusion also suspected by Lil Toto in the manga when she was informed by Hashvald's talented aide about this statement that he has made. Indeed, Lil and other Quincy's like Gigi have survived as they were tended to and were stationed at a Quincy base in the human world, all in accordance with Hashvald's instructions given to his aide, requesting that she preserves the Quincy race no matter what. The aide's knowledge of this statement indicates that she was very likely nearby in the manga panel where that statement was made, assuming that she was referring to that specific instance. So perhaps the Almighty is not all that almighty after all. Perhaps even the gods are subject to a fate they cannot oppose. On the other hand, the latter reason is one where any further details we are provided with only served to paint a contradictory picture.
Because his power was split.
Ichibei claims that though the Soul King's will may have faded with time, he was aware of the general situation, and through his bones that are the Oken, Ichibei could feel the Soul King guiding Ichigo to Ryokyu, the Soul King Palace. This, however, conflicts with Yuha's and Haschwaldt's assessments. In the process of assimilating the Soul King, Yuha being unable to restrain the Soul King's powers results in them gushing forth, only to ignore the Quincy's and head right down to the Soul Society.
They were the enemy as far as
it was at this moment that Haschwaldt states that the enemies of the Soul King are the Soul Reapers and not the Quincy's. Moreover, Yuha was in shock that the right arm of the Soul King would assist the Soul Reapers, seek to maintain the world in its current form, and even further try to absorb Yuha. All this is to say that Yuha and Haschwaldt quite clearly thought that the Soul King despised the Soul Reapers and the new world created by sacrificing him. Yuha concluded that being removed from the Soul King, his dismembered parts have awakened a will of their own, distinct from the will of the Soul King. So do not make the error of assuming that either Pernida, Mimihagi, or Gerard's affiliations in any way speak for or against what the Soul King thought, felt, or willed. They appear to have awakened and developed their own separate thoughts and convictions. Of the three confront parts of the Soul King, Gerard, Pernida, and Mimihagi, it is difficult to ascertain their goals, thoughts, and convictions, and it's not clear as to how much they know of the history of the Soul King and whether they are aware that they are parts of him. I mean, one would expect them to make at least some comments after the Soul King's death.
Exactly.
Gerard did not discuss what were his reasons for affiliating with Yuha, and he died never having had a dialogue centered on him being the Soul King's heart. The closest we got to something substantive is Gerard calling himself God's power and a warrior of God, a warrior that continues to swing his sword even in death. Since he is the heart of the Soul King, these statements can be viewed as being a reference to that fact, as the heart is metaphorically a representation of one's strength and will, and as such, the Soul King's heart is big, strong, and persevering. The most difficult one to assess is Mimihagi, due to their lack of facial structures.
And because of that's true, that's really how how his heart is like. I can definitely see why Ichigo's ancestor was able to become friends with him, because Ichigo's heart is kind of also like that as well. Maybe not just as much, but it's very noble and it's a strong word. So I can see how they will become friends.
They have only one eye and never made any statements. Any goal they might have can only be deduced from third-party comments. I have an urge to say that unlike the other parts, Mimihagi is well aware of the Soul King's history, or at least critical parts of it, judging by Yuha's fashion of addressing Mimihagi, which indicates that Mimihagi understands the intricacies of the situation. When questioned by Yuha on its actions of aiding the Soul Reapers to maintain the world's current state of affairs, Mimihagi just squints. Its lack of eyebrows, a mouth, and a face makes the meaning of the squint ambiguous. Is it smiling? Was it being attentive?
Did it care?
Or gleeful? Or confused perhaps? Given that it purposely blocked Yuha and then tried to absorb him, confusion was certainly not why Mimihagi was squinting.
Yeah, he wanted to do that.
With regards to Pernida, they outright rejected being referred to as a left arm, and further asserts to have always been a Quincy, and takes offense to any disrespect directed towards the Quincy's.
So he was on the Quincy
Worth
side,
noting is the fact that Pernida was substantially cognitively deficient and only advanced to the point of making proper sentences during the fight with Mayuri. So I think it's well justified to say that any of the left arm's comments pertain only to the time after which it was removed from the Soul King. So Pernida calling themselves Quincy is by no means a confirmation that the Soul King himself considered that he was a Quincy.
Well, if he's a hybrid, he's all of them, right?
What about Yuha, the father of Quincy's, possessing eyes that see into the future and wielder of the Almighty like the Soul King? How does he relate to the Soul King? This too is a question that has no definitive answers. According to Tokinada, Yuha either is a son that the Soul King has left behind before being sealed, or that he is a facet of the power of the Soul King that takes the form of a person. But what is certain is that the source of the Quincy's powers is in some way derived from the Soul King. Yet one question still remains. What about the other parts of the Soul King? The answer lies within the Fullbringers, quite literally as a matter of fact. Fullbringers are humans that carry within them fragments of the Soul King. These fragments are the reason as to why they are usually attacked by hollows in their mother's wombs, as the hollows sense the distinction in their spiritual pressure. These fragments function as a foundation to allow for their basic abilities of Fullbring, but that is not the end of it, as these fragments further function to grant Fullbringers unique powers that they can manifest through an object that they have an attachment to. This endowment of unique powers by the fragments of the Soul King functions in a similar way to the Hogyoku.
Which grants the power of the wilderness, right?
But Aizen states that his Hogyoku was what awakened Orihime and Chad's powers. You might be thinking, so which is it? Was it Aizen's Hogyoku or the Soul King fragments within them? This revelation does not necessarily negate Aizen's assessments that Chad and Orihime's power development was facilitated by his Hogyoku, as he does disclose the caveat that the Hogyoku facilitates a particular development if and only if the person already has within them the potential for that development. And so we can deduce that the potential that existed within Orihime and Chad are the Soul King fragments that dwell within them, much like all other Fullbringers. Otherwise, they could not have awakened the powers that they have awakened.
They just be normal humans, maybe with
this newfound information of their relation to the Soul King is bound to make most of us think back to the instance when Aizen explicitly states that Orihime has powers that bypass divine law.
Yeah, she's like,
having a Soul King fragment serves to explain the remarkable nature of her Soten Keshun that is neither time reversal nor spatial regression. Soten Keshun is literally the ability to reject phenomena, thus ignoring any physics, properties, temporal constraints, or limitations.
And I just want to talk about something like, since all Fullbring godly, it depends on the ability, because her ability is very powerful, but it's not like the most powerful offensive ability. Like she can't like really use like, oh, just one-shot people, but it's like her ability to heal people and to, you know, bring back from the dead really is like on some godly level shit. And it's like, what if like the Soul King had like all these different abilities that were like on this level? That's why you think of the Almighty. With the Almighty, it's like a Fullbringer ability or something like that. He just had all these different abilities that were just on such a highly powerful level that he could just do all these things that made him nearly omnipotent.
So if Orihime's powers are godly, should that not also be true for all Fullbringers by virtue of them also having Soul King fragments?
That's what I'm thinking.
Kiriko and Tsukishima. Tsukishima has the ability to manipulate the past. Not memories or the mind, but literally manipulate the past.
Yeah, his power is broken.
This ability of his was remarkable enough to bypass Yuha's Almighty, which the latter used to splinter Ichigo's Bankai in the future. Tsukishima was able to sidestep this feat of Yuha's so as to allow Ichigo's Bankai to be restored by Orihime. Kiriko has the ability to set terms by forming a contract with God, or so he claims, and should the terms of the contract be broken or violated, punishment is served by burning the liable participants or the objects within the contract. In his younger years, Kiriko tried to kill his wife, yikes, with his scythe. Soon after, she grew weak and lost her life.
He regretted that, but
it was then when he prayed that his initial wish be nulled. This resulted in him losing his eye by being burned with a fire because he attempted to violate the initial contract that had his wife dying as one of its terms. In the case of Yukio, using his Invaders Must Die Fullbring, he is capable of creating dimensions and control time within them. To be sure, he does in fact create dimensions, not to be mistaken for barriers, enclosures, or a container of sort. That is not what Yukio is doing. This is evidenced by the fact that within the dimensions he creates, there is a larger space or area inside his creation than there is on the outside, thus indicating that he is creating separate dimensions. Furthermore, he is able to control time within the dimensions he creates, such that multiple days spent within one of his dimensions correspond to only 90 minutes in real time, similar to the temporal properties of the Dangai. Next up is Riruka. Riruka is capable of moving objects and subjects, in other words, souls, into and out of one another. In other words, it is within her ability to control the souls of people. She could transfer Rukia into then out of Deviko and could transfer herself into then out of Rukia. Allying with Kisuke and Yoruichi, she was able to transfer a Kyogoku into a box. The one she moved into the box is stated to be small. How small exactly is not clear. The only Kyogoku we have seen was the one from the movie Memories of Nobody. However, such phenomenal abilities surely do not apply to all Fullbringers. Chad, Jackie, and Ginjo all have Fullbrings that are power-based and effectively only really amplify one's power. All in all, Giriko, Orihime, and Tsukishima's abilities can be described as godly, and maybe Riruka and Yukio's could be described as such as well, but not Jackie, Chad, and Ginjo. But here's the thing. The fact of the matter is that assessing their unique abilities is a fruitless endeavor if one is trying to find out whether or not Fullbringers can be described as godly or not. Their godly nature lies within their very basic abilities. Fullbring functions by allowing a Fullbringer to draw out the souls of objects and even people and put those souls to their use, thus allowing them to control and manipulate those objects in innumerable and countless ways. The chapter where the mechanics of Fullbring was explained was titled The Soul Pantheism. Some people suggested that this may be a reference to the Soul King, but that is not true. This is a play on words by Kubo. Pantheism means that God or divinity is present in everything. Adding soul to this concept would result in it meaning that there is a soul within everything, as was explained within the chapter itself.
That's really interesting.
The ability to use their unique power is actually the easiest Fullbring that a Fullbringer can use, and is usually the first Fullbring a Fullbringer executes. Only experts can extend that influence even further to execute abilities like the Fullbring Light, where Fullbring is used on the air, ground, etc. What makes Fullbring astounding is not merely their unique abilities, or the fact that a Fullbringer can subject souls under their control, but when you consider the fact that everything has a soul. Being able to do with everything what Ginjo did with that alcohol, what does that imply when taken to its logical conclusion?
Omnipotence.
Enter Aura Michibane. She is a fascinating Fullbringer that answers the aforementioned question by demonstrating to us what taking the basic abilities of Fullbring to its logical conclusion entails. She is a Fullbringer that has no unique Fullbring, but that is not the most outstanding fact about her. She is the only Fullbringer whose Soul King fragment has been explicitly specified. The Soul King Saketsu or binding chain dwells within her. The Saketsu is an organ that boosts one's spiritual energy by working in tandem with another organ called the Hakusui that creates one's spiritual energy. Though called a binding chain, the Saketsu is not really a chain, or at least has not been depicted as such. The Saketsu, along with the Hakusui of Ichigo, was what Byakuya destroyed in their confrontation in the first arc, thus eliminating Ichigo's spiritual powers. In any case, Aura was able to use the ambient reishi, the reishi in the atmosphere of the Kyogoku, and with that alone, she created a replica of the Ryokyu, the Soul King's palace, along with its floating cities. Even more remarkable is that she was able to manipulate the physics of the area so as to allow for the power.
This is so fucking crazy. Because when you look at, because her ability is so broken. She's, like you said, she's able to manipulate matter, even the laws of physics around things. Learn her to pretty much, you can say, almost do anything with that structure. So just the whole fact he's saying, like, all Fullbrings have the ability to like he said, because the soul is in everything, right? So if you can manipulate the soul like everything, you can pretty much become omnipotent. So it's like, I think the thing was like the Soul King probably had all these, like he just said, enumerate all these like probably different abilities that a Fullbringer possessed that are heightened to such a level that like all these different abilities he had were godly to the point he can almost, like you say, he transcends everything. So if a soul is in everything, that means he transcends soul, so he can pretty much almost do and almost pretty much manipulate everything, probably because of all the powers and abilities that he had, and that they were able to. He was able to heighten them to such a level. And like you said, all Fullbringers all start with a ability. Orihime, I hope I'm saying pronounce her name right. As long as I was bleeds. When she first unlocked her ability, like she also unlocked the ability to use it as an attack as well. So at the same time, it's kind of like it's interesting because when I look at Chad, we've always kind of like Chad's a great character. I love Chad, but so we've always looked at him as like one of the weak background friends of Ichigo. But yet, if he has the potential to evolve his fist powers, like or where his abilities are, to an even greater level or even greater extent than what they originally were, like any other Fullbringer. So that's really interesting because I mean, Chad could become a lot more powerful. This is all just so interesting. I love what he's doing with this video so far.
Palace to stay floating. Furthermore, she created a luxurious palace gilded with gold, indicating her control extends even to an atomic level, and to reiterate, she achieved such a feat using only the pure reishi of the Kyogoku and her basic Fullbring abilities. Even further, she can use...
So if she can go even further down, let's say she can manipulate like matter on a quantum level even further down, she can literally manipulate just like reality of itself as a whole, twist and turn it and bend the very universe. That's fucking crazy. Like, if she could get to that level, that's what I'm saying. It's probably what made the Soul King so overpowered. Like, he just had all these abilities that gave him the power to pretty much control everything. Like he said, a soul is present in everything. Their ability to kind of manipulate a soul to a certain extent. So if he's able to do that, and he has all these different like abilities, and they're all like upgrades to like this crazy, insane level, it's like no wonder he was so fucking proud. Like, this is what I love the way he's breaking this shit down.
Use Fullbring on people's souls, allowing her to take control of them. In the novels, this ability of hers was showcased by her control of a group of people dressed in black and wearing gas masks, armed with extendable batons. Yet even more remarkable is that she can further apply her Fullbring through the people she is controlling. Only a slight graze from the baton of one of the people she was controlling allowed her to manipulate Shuhei's soul and hence his Reiatsu, causing a reduction of his reaction speed. This was most likely due to her subjecting a restraint on Shuhei's Reiatsu. A Zanpakuto is not exempt from her control. Kisuke concluded in their confrontation that it was quite possible that both Shuhei and his Zanpakuto could be subjected to her manipulation should they get consumed by an assault she prepared during that confrontation. The only caveat for this ability is that it requires contact. It is not an ability she can execute at a distance.
Okay.
The influence of her Fullbring is not only restricted to what's external, but rather she can use her Fullbring to manipulate her body in a variety of different ways. Most notably, she can transform her body into a smoke-like state, making her impervious to physical attacks, invisible, and can even pass through walls. Using Fullbring on her body even allowed her to survive decapitation, continue conversing while decapitated, and then use her body to grab and tug back her head to her body, subsequently reattaching it, returning it to an unscathed condition. Finally, the most phenomenal implementation of her powers was the creation of life, creating Hikone. So she is Hikone's mother in a way. Despite not being from scratch, as she made use of the souls of various humans, Soul Reapers, Quincy's, and the brain of Gremmy, Sternritter V the Visionary. And most importantly, many fragments of the Soul King. Regardless of that, the feat is not any less remarkable.
Oh, she created a whole person.
Hikone is a person that Tokinata created to serve as a new Soul King. The following is a depiction from the Bleach Brave Souls game. It's not a screenshot from an animation, though it looks like one. Aura Michibane can truly be described as godly, while still only making use of basic Fullbring abilities. Perhaps she is the most powerful woman in Bleach. I theorize that the soul cycle in the very creation of the new world, which was achieved using the Soul King, is a Fullbring of sort. Moving on, humans, or Fullbringers in other words, are certainly not the only people that served as the vessels for the parts or fragments of the Soul King. Two that we know about are Rangiku and Jushiro.
Rangiku?
Jushiro having the right arm and Rangiku having a nail. Yeah, I know that's kind of really weird.
Damn.
Evidently, Aizen was alluding to this fact about Jushiro.
Oh, so that's why Aizen won her. It all makes, like I said, it's been a while since I've watched Bleach, so I don't remember her back. So I remember Aizen kind of like attacked her and stuff. The fact she said she had a nail, bro, like how many pieces of the Soul's King, like, are his cells in other people too? Shit. That's what I'm saying. Like, I felt like he didn't have the full power of the Soul King because all the Soul King wasn't fucking there. Look at his nail. Like, come on, bro.
Jushiro during their exchange before he departs Soul Society. No one ever stood atop the heavens before. Not you, or I, or the gods. In particular, when Aizen specifically calls out Ukitake when he says, not you. And with regards to Rangiku, it has always been unclear what exactly Aizen took away from her. But what was clear is that whatever it was, it had to do with the Hogyoku, and was something that was necessary in order for Aizen to make the Hogyoku.
So he used his nail.
After all, the Hogyoku was what Gin tried to take away from Aizen, but failed in doing so. And his dying words to Rangiku were, I couldn't do it. I couldn't get back what he took away from you.
Bro.
What was taken away from her happened to be none other than a Soul King fragment. It actually comes as not much of a surprise that the fragments of the Soul King are a necessary component to make something as phenomenal and miraculous as a Hogyoku, which according to Aizen breaks the divide between the earthly and the divine. How do we or anyone know all of this? Wouldn't the ancestors have ensured that this was not found out? Not even the heads of the noble clans like Byakuya, for example, seem to be aware of the entire history. Ichibei is someone that knows for starters, but besides him, the Tsuneashiro clan are the guardians and keepers of history. Whether or not it was the ancestor, the first generation, or later generations, they have erected a monument which is stored deep within the archives of the Tsuneashiro clan, onto which all of this history has been recorded, in a ciphertext that requires some amount of decoding to understand, and starts by saying, "We shall record the sins committed by our forefathers here." Presumably, or according to Tokinada, they may have made and stored this monument in order to have leverage over the other noble houses.
Because they knew the secret.
How large or small the monument is would be up to your imagination, but that is the beauty of reading. The monument was found and read by Tokinada, but the monument is no more as it has been destroyed by him after he got done reading what it stored.
Oh, you piece of garbage. Your ancestors are dead.
Most of this information can be found in the Can Fear Your Own World novels. I thank Tumblr user Miss Stormcrawler and Reddit user Schnizzle for translating this material to us, and Tari for compiling and making it available in PDF form. The PDF really came in handy when reading the third volume. Thank you guys. You guys are great. Keep doing what you're doing, and the links will be in the description. Ishinken Hakyoken translates to Divine Sword, 8-Mirror Sword. Viz just translates it to Divine 8-Mirror Sword. Fans have suggested earlier that it splits the said god into 8 parts or something along those lines, but that's quite evidently not the case. The 8 in its name may be a reference to the fact that it has 8 mirrors. The sword has 4 rhombus-shaped mirrors on either side. Like many people, I too initially thought that this sword was involved in the mutilation process of the Soul King, especially considering that when we see it used by Nanao, a single cut makes the part that was cut disperse into fragments and shoot away in all directions, which is consistent with the fact that there are many Soul King fragments dispersed all over the world.
Yeah.
The fact that it's referred to as a Zanpakuto may or may not be substantial, in that if we are to assume that it has the same properties of an ordinary Zanpakuto, then as the shape we see it in is a non-standard, bladeless form, then it must be a constant Shikai form, or perhaps even a constant Bankai. Or else what we see is its Shikai and it has a Bankai that we have not seen. However, what's worth noting is that even the swords of the Arrancar are called Zanpakutos. It seems in Bleach, any sword or a sword that seals some being or part of one's soul is called a Zanpakuto. The sword may have certainly been involved, but it's important to keep in mind that the Issei family are not part of the history, or at least were not mentioned. Perhaps they were simply given the sword by one of the noble clans due to the curse attached to it. Who knows?
Probably the Soul King.
And finally, judging from Ichibe's powers, the noble clan's ancestors may be powerful enough to achieve such a feat without the need of a weapon. Finally, stay tuned for the next installment as the revelation of hollows pre-existing the current framework of the world, the implications made that suggest Ulquiorra is a begotten hollow, and the requirement of Soul King fragments in making the Hogyoku, raising questions as to how Kisuke resourced his materials, merit further discussion. As always, I'll see you guys in another video. Goodbye!
Alright guys, so that's the end of the video. Wow, it's probably one of my longest videos I've done so far, but that was amazing. Shout out to Stay in Blue. Again, I know nothing. Hope you don't mind. This is all credit, but I'm just blown away of all the information. The fact he was able to put this all together, because it all makes so much sense. From talking about the Fullbring to different pieces to the clans, like everything makes so much sense. And which is why for me, one of my biggest things, I want to see the Soul King. Like he said, there are all these pieces. Like how many pieces? Like see, he had a fucking nail, bro. A nail, and like a nail was piled to create something like a hollow, like the Hogyoku, like that made Aizen like this god near level being. So it's like, what happened if you were to get all the pieces together? Where are all the pieces? If you were to bring back everything else a part of the Soul King, and for a reason, like it's like how powerful would he be when you just have like a bunch of different pieces? Like that's what I'm fucking wondering. And it's like, I want to see the Soul King come back. I hope they continue doing these novels. Eventually get to a novel with a point where it's involving like Ichigo's son or his grandson, whatever, where eventually they're able to bring back the Soul King in its entirety. And where that means somebody fused with, because they said in order to be a Soul King, they have to be a hybrid. So my thing is like either Ichigo's son or his grandson is going to end up fusing with the entirety of the Soul King and becoming like the entire Soul King when he really was. And cause like if just his fragments are able to give people like these insane powers, like what can the whole thing do, man? But this was great. Shout out to Sam Plume again, man. Thank you so much. Thank you just for doing this video, because information. This is the best backstory I've seen on the Soul King in any video. Like it's just amazing. I love the way he broke everything down. If we talked about the period of the world, to the clans, to the hollows, to the zombies, like all these things he put in here were just amazing. So anyway guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for anybody that stuck me watching this whole video despite the pause and stuff like that. I hope you guys enjoy. If you guys did, make sure to subscribe, share, and like the video. Helps support the channel, help me turn and grow it, help me get my goal 1,000 subscribers. Like I said, there'll be a link in the description of the video. Please go check it out for yourself. So and really get that information in. Make sure to check out, I'll leave a link to his video as well. Please go check him out. He's just gotten to 1,000 subscribers himself. I'm halfway there, so please go check him out and support him. His channel is this video has gotten to I think just over 1,000 subscribers, but it's easy. I'm hoping it easily gets over 1 million, because it deserves. Like this is like I said, the best video on the Soul King I've ever seen, and one of the best Bleach videos ever. It's just so informational. So please go check him out to his channel and to his video. Please go support him. He's amazing. There will be, make sure to check out my social media down below. Make sure to let me your thoughts down below. What do you guys think of the backstory? Give me you guys' opinion, your guys' thought. What do you guys think? Like I just don't know, because this is such good information. Let me know your thoughts. What other like anime or Bleach story things you want me to react to? And yeah, make sure to like, subscribe, sir, and support the channel. But that's how our characters. I'm out. Peace, guys.